Hello, I'm Jerry Scheidbach. I pastor the Lighthouse Baptist Church, and I'm here in Brain, Missouri. Recent battles over public restroom etiquette. And I'm not talking about washing before, washing after, or washing before and after. And I'm not even talking about having the courtesy to police your own area after you've used the facilities, as opposed to rudely leaving your mess for others to tend to. What we are talking about is whether men that are confused about their gender should be trusted to use public restrooms with our wives and our daughters. Now, Hillary believes those who are uncomfortable sharing a restroom with a pervert are supporters of Jim Crow-like laws. Well, Trump has a different way of addressing this question. He invited Brucey, that's Bruce Jenner, otherwise our AKA Caitlyn Jenner, and that's the guy, who decided he was a girl, and so had an operation to change his gender. Although I understand recently he's had some misgivings about that decision. He's got post-transgender operation blues or remorse, or anyway, he thinks maybe it was a mistake and perhaps he'd rather be a man after all. Anyway, Donnie Trump invited Jenner to come to his hotels where he could use the woman's restroom if he pleased. So Trump displays his own moral elasticity on the question of male perverts sharing restroom facilities with the wives and daughters of his guests at his hotels. Is gender fluid, and does it matter? Are you whatever gender you feel like you are on any given day? A friend sent to me a link to a video in which Joseph Backholm interviews students on the campus of Washington University, and he asks them their opinion on the issue of accessing bathrooms based on chosen gender expression. In other words, guys who decide they're gals and want to use the gal's bathroom, or the gals who decide they're guys and want to use the guy's bathroom. At least in the video that I watched, I guess he couldn't find one single student who held to a biologically determined gender. Every single one of them believed that gender identity was psychologically determined. Or as Miley Cyrus put it recently, you can be whatever you want to be. It started off as a guy, might be a girl trapped in a boy's body. Or a girl might be a guy trapped in a girl's body, and we were encouraged to feel their pain, to imagine the psychological distress and the social confusion and consternation such a situation would create. Now, this very rapidly, however, evolved, or perhaps devolved, to this gender fluidity idea, a situation where someone can be male or female depending on how they feel in the moment, or perhaps even be both at the same time at any time. It's gotten so insane that now a New York law has been passed, a local ordinance, establishing the idea that employers are required to police their employees to ensure no one refuses to use an individual's preferred gender title or name. Or in other words, if someone refuses to call Brucey by his desired title, which I think is Caitlyn, I mentioned it earlier. No, it's Caitlyn. Caitlyn Jenner, that's right. But in protest to his campaign to normalize this confusion in our society, I often refer to Brucey. Now, there's more to that I have time to go into, but it's from a song lyric that's titled, Big Bad Bruce, I think. It actually is a social political statement that is, in fact, covered by my right to free speech. But I guess I could be sued in New York and made to pay a fine of between $125,000 and $250,000, I suppose. I don't think that would be in comportment with my inalienable right to free speech, but apparently New York doesn't feel that's as important as somebody's right to self-identify as a male when they are biologically a female, and vice versa. Anyway, this is a point I've made very, very often. It is impossible to accommodate these perversities in our culture without compromising and ultimately forfeiting our liberties. Accommodating perversity necessarily requires a forfeiture of liberty. When you extend protection for perverts, then necessarily we remove protections from, well, everyone else. Every accommodation that we have made to the homosexual agenda has required a forfeiture of some measure of our liberties. Please pay attention to this. Either our right to refuse service to anyone, remember that one, or our right of free association, remember that one, or our right to freedom of speech, well, you might appreciate that one, or our right to free expression, which is the basis of their business. I mean, if they can be free to express, why can't we? But anyway, in other words, the homosexual agenda has not simply said we want the same rights you have. What's happened is they're demanding we forfeit certain rights in order to accommodate them. The attack on gender distinction is yet another advance in the war on the whole concept of inalienable rights endowed to us by our Creator. If gender distinctions are not defined by our Creator, but are fluid, the entire notion of inalienable rights will ultimately be disconnected from the Creator and then become fluid. In the same way that this idea of gender fluidity disconnects gender identity from our Creator, and forcing this whole thing on society through legislating immorality, will necessarily encroach on the inalienable rights of others so that their right to decide their own gender trumps our right to free speech. Even our right to personal privacy in public restrooms, for heaven's sake. In the end, my dear friends, disconnecting gender identity from nature and nature's God strikes at the foundation of inalienable rights that, until now, have been considered to be endowed to us by our Creator. And this will lead to the idea of fluidity of liberty, where finally government decides what freedoms you have or don't have. In other words, we are endowed by our government with what limited freedoms we can enjoy, so that every man is created equal and endowed by their government with certain rights that are very alienable, because it's all very fluid, you know. If we continue to allow government to play God in our lives, it will eventually demand to be God of your life. Disconnecting gender from nature, nature's God, leads to the disconnection of our liberties from God, leaving us with no independent right to resist tyranny. That's something for you to think about.